We've got big things going on in this video, pun intended. Before we get started, let's do a little housekeeping, I think they call it. We did get new Riddler wheels. These are the 606s. You guys may remember we had 610s, which were brand new for 2023. But they actually had polished lips. That's kind of my deal because I don't want to be out here polishing all day. Now these 606s are actually a machine finish with a clear coat on them. And then this has clear coat in it also. So super easy to take care of. Just wash it like you would paint. As always, huge shout out to Stephen Cantrell with Wheel411.com. If you're needing wheels or want some fitment understanding or what size tires can I run, sells lowering kits, he sells Snowden seats. Anyway, he's basically C10 supply. So to what you came here for, got a couple of boxes from Little Shop Manufacturing, and I do want to start out saying I paid full price for these. This is not a sponsorship deal whatsoever, but it could be. This is the 14-inch big brake kit. Nice, couple of stickers, instruction manual. Their website is fantastic too with instructions, full color stuff. Really nice. I'll put a link in the description to the part numbers that I purchased from them. One of the things that was most impressive was they shipped them out the same day that I placed my order. I think it's kind of neat on their website. They ask you what size t-shirt you wear. So you get a free one of those with every order. This is the rear kit. I like that they already give you the Loctite that you need. I don't have to correct myself and say thread locker because it literally is Loctite. There's the stainless braided hoses and the bracket. Now here's something cool. You might think, well, Little Shop's just selling me Willwood products. And that's true to an extent, but they do machine their own brackets. They have their own logo even machined in here for the Willwood calipers. Hey, cool, another sticker. So here is the backing plate / parking brake assembly. And another thing that I thought was super cool about Little Shop that you won't find with the competitors is it can actually be used with your stock parking brake cable. Now there is a little bit of modification required. We'll show you that later. I looked at one of the competitors' products to see if maybe I wanted to use that. Bear. You end up spending more on the competitor's product for smaller brakes to make them work than you do from Little Shop buying this 14-inch front and rear kit that comes with 6-piston front and 4-piston rear Willwood calipers. So here's another component that Little Shop actually makes as well, and that's the hubs. So really super nice piece made from aluminum and has this black coating on it. And of course this is actually your parking brake drum inside here. They send you this hardware. They are not pre-drilled, so we will certainly not worry about putting safety wire between each one of them when we fasten the rotor to these hubs. Oh, that thing's pretty chunky. 4-piston and the 6-piston have the same housing, but they only actually have 4 pistons in them instead of 6. I'm hoping that they don't send like true race pads, because you know we ran into that with what TCI sent out with our front end. The box doesn't really tell me. It just says black, this much thickness, bridge, whatever. Now, these rotors are seriously heavy. They sell them in both this black coating for the drilled and slotted, but if you just get the slotted that aren't drilled, they're just bare steel, so you could have potential surface rust that'll happen on those. They charge $100 a pair more to get this black coating and for the drilled and slotted feature. I only paid the extra $100 because I wanted the black coating. I'm certainly not going to need the ventilation or any of that stuff for these brakes because we just don't do that with this truck. I hate to admit it. This stuff's mostly for looks. These are all the parts for the front. Yeah, just to confirm, that's a 4-piston and a 6-piston caliper. But as we said, they look identical. This one actually has a little arrow milled into the housing. We can go ahead and install the rotors to all 4 hats at the same time. Now, 2 of these are the same part number, and then the other 2 are the same part number on the rotors. So We don't have to worry about getting them mixed up as long as we put a left and a right on the rear drums and then a left and a right on the front hubs. Most of these are in pretty good shape, but you do want to take sort of a finer file and kind of go over these surfaces to make sure where this powder coat or coating happened around the threads is not sticking up and going to hold up this rotor or try to flex this hat. So according to the instructions, all of these little bolts need to go at 155 inch-pounds, which if you have one of these smaller torque wrenches, that's the equivalent of 13 foot-pounds. Little Shop doesn't send the washers that go behind each one of these, which is what Willwood's instructions call for, so I guess they're like, send it. I'm going to use their provided thread locker and put it about halfway up each one of these threads. Drop them in place. Interestingly, this whole entire toolbox worth of tools, and I did not have 1/4 inch 12-point socket in there. Ended up having to buy an entire set of 12-point sockets just to get that. Those things are not as easy to come by as you might think. So I'm going to start all these by hand. I guess everything's by hand. And then run them in with this drill with the clutch set really light, just to get them all ran down, and then we'll torque them all. So for those of you who are new here, this is a TCI front suspension. Probably a good time to mention, if you have any questions about anything you see on this square body, there's an entire build series right here on this channel. Subscribe and find that playlist. TCI offers a 13-inch Willwood option for this suspension kit, which I just had them ship it to me with this stock stuff on it, and now we're ready to upgrade. Of course, we're going to go 14s. Apparently, these spindles are the equivalent to a CPP front spindle, and they are modular. First thing I'll do is remove the caliper and hang it somewhere, and I'm not going to break into the brake system so there'd be no fluid loss or anything until we're ready to just switch out the cables to the new Willwood calipers. So here is that universal or modular spindle that comes from TCI, and you can see it's modular because you could bolt the tie rod mount to either direction, or you could put the caliper on either side of this center section. We're gonna test fit everything dry before we put grease in all the bearings and stuff and kind of bolt it up to make sure that this spindle will work before we get too crazy, because I don't know, maybe worst case scenario, we have to order CPP spindles. I took the bracket off, and so far so good. The holes line up for the Little Shop caliper bracket, and the bolts that they sent are the same thread pitch as this TCI spindle, so things are looking good. So I have this bracket bolted on, no Loctite on these threads just yet for mock-up. And here's their hub, which, what a piece of art. Also, I like that Little Shop already has your studs ran into it. Willwood stuff, the instructions show you've got to bolt your own threads in. Putting this together dry for fitment reasons. Also want to point out, you will have to reuse your hub nut and washer from your existing stuff, CPP spindles, or I guess TCI spindles. Nice to have big tools every now and then, if you know what I'm saying. Now let's go get us a rotor and a caliper. Might as well take these off in preparation for the next stage of this game. So here's one of our front rotor assemblies. Alright. And there are arrows on these to tell you which direction is forward rotation. Alright, take one of your calipers, pull this brake pad keeper bolt, nut, and tube out. Pay attention, these are marked for direction as well, just like the rotors. So I'm going to start out with one shim on each of these and drop our caliper in place. I can already tell the caliper is certainly too far inboard and needs to move out. And we only have that one washer in there, so this is gonna make this game pretty fast. Just take our bracket back off, remove one washer and put it back together. Oh yeah, that's a lot more better. Good news is if you bought a front and a rear kit like we did, you don't have to worry about mixing them up because they take the same brake pads. Due to these probably not being CPP spindles, they're a little thicker here, so I had to take a little material off of this bracket in order to bring it in as far as I could get it to center up this caliper. Also, I'm gonna put one shim on these to test fit again. It looks really good. Let's see what happens with some brake pads. Alright, perfectly centered. Now we just need to check our depth. What we're looking at is making sure that we don't have a pad that's higher than this or much lower than this beveled edge. We want it to be right on spec, and we can add washers here if we need to move it out, which I don't think we need to, and I don't really want to move it any further in. I am pretty happy with right where it sits. The caliper will now come back off. I'll take these bolts out and put Loctite on them, run them back in, torque to spec. I'll pull this, well, I'll have to pull the rotor assembly back off of the hub and then pack these bearings with grease and then tighten it back down. Bearings are greased, seal was pressed in. I put this on, snugged it down. All the grease is in that bad boy. And I know I left that part out, but I've learned that the quickest way to commit YouTube suicide is to show someone how you grease bearings or how you set preload, because everyone else is right but you. This is something I thought was super cool. Look at this cap. It's almost a shame that this is going to be covered up by a wheel. A little O-ring there. Oh my gosh, what do you call that? ASMR or some crap that they're doing these days? I don't know, kids are weird. That wraps up the front, or at least this side. I probably didn't show it, but got the little tube in here. It's still a little loose on there. These are just snugged up tight. You don't want to try to collapse that caliper. Still have great clearance. Also, I wanted to point out that I used a little bit of orange Loctite gel on these bolts that hold the caliper on. That holds it nice and tight, but it still allows it to be removed. Put a couple of lug nuts in there just to hold it square. That thing is absolute beauty. So the way Wheelwoods work, they've got a hole drilled 8th 27 NPT in the back of their caliper. You're gonna wanna get one of these fittings, which thankfully Little Shop sends with their kit, and then you can buy these separately that will thread on into the back of your caliper. You'll want to use PTFE tape on the threads that go inside the caliper, and they send you these clips which will hold this inside the frame, and your factory brake line will just attach to that. So I've got the tape on this fitting. Go ahead and get that threaded in. Sure don't want to cross thread this of all things. Seems to be pretty snug though. Now we'll put our brake line on this. Half inch, we'll just snug it. Because I haven't decided exactly how we're going to run this line around the spindle and all that, and not have to concern ourselves with it getting into the rotor or into the wheel. A little pro tip for bleeding these brakes. I have installed this new hose, and I'm not gonna put that clip in because I wanna see if this thing's gonna leak when we start bleeding and it has pressure. Of course, this is fastened in the back nice and tight. This is a one-man bleeder kit. I'm missing some of the parts because I've had it forever. But basically, if you can just tie it to that bleeder and then let it run into this, you see how it has to go uphill first. Just gravity bleed both sides of this caliper first to make sure they're full before you go messing with pressure bleeding. And then just make sure you keep plenty of fluid here. All right, pressure. And lift. Thanks, Mom. That's all handled. Got the wheels on it, and it's back on the ground. Can still see black for now, but I have a feeling it's not going to take very long for that to be gone. Do some stops real early before we get moving too much. So far, it works. Making a real scary groaning noise whenever I hit the brakes. I know that's just got to be it rubbing that coating off of the surface area where the pads make contact. Oh, school bus. They're in a hurry. I just got passed by a school bus. Okay, I've made a stop from 30 and 40. Doesn't seem to be doing it anymore. Oh, but it smells awful. And it just occurred to me, there's probably some break-in procedure, like what to do and then let it cool down and stuff. That worked out. Just a few miles and a few stops and those are cleaned off. I'm pretty sure I know what happened to that paint though. You know, I wish I could say there was a huge improvement in how the truck stopped, but to be honest, the truck that weighs probably less than 4,000 pounds was stopping just fine with the stock 12-inch rotors. But they definitely didn't look as good as these bad boys do. I'm gonna do this on screen so you can kind of see before and after shots. As I said at the beginning, this is not a sponsored video, but I have to give a shout out to the guys at Little Shop. Immediately shipped the parts that I ordered, and that kind of post-COVID is not super common. I'm gonna wait and do the rears on another video because this one's kind of running long at this point, and there's gonna be a lot more time involved in the rear brakes because we're gonna have to pull the axle out. Just a ton more work, and I bought a super cool new diff cover. You guys are just gonna have to watch this next video to catch it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.